Welcome to tonight's event, the CCL Wisconsin Younger Members Panel Discussion. And we're just going to ask that everyone stay on mute during this event. We have a Q&A at the bottom where you can enter your questions rather than the chat. Use the Q&A. And then I believe there's an option to upvote a question with a thumbs up. And that'll help bring the most common questions up to the top. And we'll have a short time for questions and answers at the end. My name is Jill Mitchler, and I'm a state coordinator for Wisconsin CCL. And we know that we have people here from all different life experiences, and we all want to work towards common ground on solving climate change. So if you're a conservative, you are welcome here. If you are a progressive, you are welcome here. And in fact, we welcome everyone who wants to work towards Congress enacting major climate legislation. For more information about CCL, you can go to cclusa.org. And the specific information about our state, CCL Wisconsin, is available on cclwi.org. And then tonight's event is going to be a kickoff for our new state scholarship fund as well. And we're going to try to help young people and others who might need financial assistance to get to our annual summer conference and lobby day in Washington, D.C. It'll be in July this year. And last year we had about 1,000 CCL volunteers who went, and there were representatives from every state, and we attended 442 meetings with congressional offices. About 97 of them were with the Senate offices. And as CCL volunteers, we're often greeted by our members of Congress or their staff saying that they actually enjoy talking with us. We always come to them with gratitude, appreciation, and respect. They appreciate our willingness to find common ground and ways to work together. And we have been successful in helping to get several bipartisan climate bills passed. And this list here shows you them. And one of the biggest ones was the Inflation Reduction Act, which climate credits, tax credits, we're fighting to keep in this administration. So CCL volunteers, I just wanted to share that I think what we're doing is working. So then the last thing I wanted to do is just thank all of our participants. We have our panelists, Emmeline Beester and Riley Palenka from Lawrence University CCL chapter. This is our first State of Wisconsin CCL chapter, and it was started about 2 months ago. So we're very excited about that. And then we have Nina Zhu and Madeline Bone from the Madison CCL Youth Action Team down in Madison. We have Pat Dwyer-Hallquist, Oshkosh chapter leader, providing our meeting tech support. Holly Jorgensen is going to help with the Q&A, and she's a Madison chapter co-leader, helped a lot with the planning as well. And also Jay Edgar of the Madison chapter, who is also our moderator tonight. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Jay and the panel.
Thanks, Jill. So let's get our panel up. Here we go. There's Emmeline, and here's Riley. And we just need Madeline. Okay, great. Welcome, all of you. Thank you so much for sharing with us this evening. And just a reminder to everyone to put your questions in the Q&A, not the chat. So we're going to, we want to respect everyone's time, and we want to do this in 1 hour. So just so everyone knows, this is going to be, you have 30 seconds left when you see the yellow, and this will be please finish when you see the red. So let's start with introductions. Please take 1 minute each and just let us know who you are. Introduce yourself. Let us know your hometown and school and your age or your year in school. Emmeline, would you start, please?
Yeah, thank you everyone so much for being here. My name is Emmeline. I'm originally from Duluth, Minnesota, and actually got involved first with the CCL chapter near there. But now I go to Lawrence University in Appleton. I'm a sophomore here studying chemistry and geoscience.
Okay, and Nina, how about you go next?
Hi, I'm Nina. Thank you everyone for being here today. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin, and I still currently live in Madison, and I go to Memorial High School, where I'm a junior, and I'm also 16.
Thanks, Nina. Riley.
Hi, I'm Riley. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, but I go to Lawrence now. I'm a sophomore and I'm studying environmental science with a minor in biology.
Thank you. And Madeline.
Hi everyone. My name is Madeline, and I am a junior who goes to Madison West High School.
Great. Thanks so much. So let's start with getting to know each of you a bit. So please take 3 or 4 minutes apiece if you would like, and let us know how you became interested in climate change. So let's shake up the order a little bit. Nina, would you start this one?
Sure. So I grew up learning about climate change just in school. And the thing that stuck out to me the most, I think, was just learning about like how ice was melting and destroying the habitats of polar bears. And it definitely made me feel concerned and worried about my future. So in like middle school, I felt more of a need to do something about it, especially after seeing Greta Thunberg and all these really powerful climate strikes that were led by youth around the world. I definitely knew it was something that would impact my future and our planet's future, but I felt like I was just wasting like emotional energy worrying about it rather than actually doing something. So I joined several like environmental groups, like my high school's Green Club. Um, I think, yeah, I really just became concerned about it because I felt really powerless, especially when a lot of leaders and politicians were denying the existence of climate change or the fact that it's caused by human activity. So that made me join CCL and some other environmental groups around Madison. So, yeah.
All right. Thanks, Nina. Madeline, do you want to go next?
Sure. I would say my story is kind of similar. I began in like third grade, I would say, with like being really empowered, or not empowered, but passionate about animal rights and animal cruelty. Um, and so I became a vegetarian in third grade because I was like, I don't want to hurt animals anymore. And then I would say, really during the pandemic, I kind of had more time to dig into things that interested me, and climate change was one of those things that I was like seeing in the news and things like that. And so I started to focus more and more on climate change. And I would say it's really been since I've been in high school that I've been able to find other people with similar interests and sort of start to really do something about it. So, like Nina, I joined CCL. It was about a year ago now. And then I'm also part of some other climate groups that are doing similar work. Um, so, for example, I write for a it's called the Youth Environmental Press Team, where we publish articles about climate change. And so, just like finding ways to use my voice has been really powerful.
Thanks, Madeline. Riley, how about you?
Yeah, so I think for me, my interest started around high school when I took a environmental science class. And I mean, all my life, I've grown up hearing about climate change and how it's impacting the earth and the environment. And but it wasn't until that class that I heard about a specific story um, in my community that was being impacted by climate change. Um, and there was a lot of like health issues. There was a cancer cluster because of dumping of chemicals into a river. And I was like, oh, what's going on? And so that initially made me want to study environmental science. Um, and I was just interested in climate change, but I was also looking for a way to use my voice and have more action towards policy. And so when Emmeline um, introduced me to CCL when we went to the Great Lakes conference, I was like, oh, we have to start a chapter at Lawrence and get policy out to other students and have action.
Great. Thanks, Riley. Emmeline? You want to finish off this round?
Yeah, I totally agree with Riley. I think that I also have been pretty environmentally minded since a young age. I mean, I grew up with my family taking trips to the Boundary Waters all the time and really understanding what climate impacts would mean for the places that I loved. And it wasn't until high school that I think it really hit super close to home for me. I think it was 2021, northern Minnesota especially experienced some pretty bad wildfires during the summer. We had a really dry summer. And I know a lot of people who had cabins in the area, some that were destroyed by the fires, and my grandparents live in Grand Marais. And that just really impacted how I felt about, the impact of climate change on my local community and my family and friends. And that's what really spurred me into involving myself in climate action more. And so also during the pandemic, I had a lot more time to do research on my own and read more about climate change and talk to friends and family about climate change and the impacts it had had on them. Um, and I think that a lot of this actually spurred my interest in the sciences at first, similar to Riley with her interest in environmental science. But as I, paid more attention to the news and entered college, I became a lot more passionate about the advocacy side of things as well. So it seems like we all have some pretty similar, like, beginnings of our roads to climate action. And I think that's something that can be said for most climate activists. But having that, intergenerational link is something that's really inspiring to me because we all have this similar beginning that we can draw from on how we're inspired and how we want to do action. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all for that round. That was great. We're doing really well on time, so we can be really relaxed with the time, I think. So the next round, we'll do about 5 minutes each. We could even go up to 6. And at this point, so you've shared your history of how you got interested in climate. Now I'd like you to share your experiences in volunteering as a climate advocate. And Nina, I'd like to start with you because you went to DC and you lobbied last June. So please share with us your experience of your advocacy in general, but also about your experience in DC.
Yeah, prior to joining CCL, I joined like the Sunrise Movement, and me and my friend tried to start like a group with that locally. And like with my Green Club at school, we did like trash pickups, and I went to a few like Dane County Youth Environmental Committee meetings, which is just like a youth environmental group in the Madison area. And I started attending like the annual youth climate conferences here. But for CCL, I joined last year, like a few months before the summer conference. So the decision to go to DC for lobby trip was definitely like a very quick one. And like I left Madison feeling kind of unprepared because I never lobbied before and I wasn't like super familiar with CCL or climate policy at all. So I was a little nervous about having no experience, but I think I made like a lot of connections with the people I went with and also the people that I met in DC. And I realized that I was not alone in feeling nervous about lobbying for the first time. And it really isn't as like scary as you might think, just like talking to members of Congress. So yeah, as I got to know other CCL members at the conference and at the student summit last year, I made a lot of meaningful friendships over just like 4 days, and we received a lot of training on the different acts we were lobbying for and just environmental policy in general, which was really helpful. And yeah, my anxiety kind of like faded away at that point. So yeah, lobby day was really exciting. Honestly, just like getting to walk in the halls of like congressional office buildings and meetings with like the staffers of senators and representatives, and even just like eating lunch in the like house office cafeteria was really cool. And I think what stuck with me the most after the conference was like the community, like the sense of community. And it was really cool seeing the different, like all the representation at the conference with different ages and religions and political affiliations and all the action teams that CCL offers. Um, but we were able to like look past all those differences and just focus on our shared like concern for the climate and wanting to do something about it. So I think, yeah, after leaving DC, I gained a new perspective on the climate advocacy movement, and I definitely felt more hope for the future of our planet. So it was a really memorable experience for me.
Nina, I just want to add, do you remember anything about the specific meetings that you had with members of Congress? Was there anything that stuck out about them, about talking with them or their staff, or do you remember what your ask was? I don't want to put you on the spot, but just was there anything from the meeting itself that has stuck with you?
I think what stuck with me the most is our main ask last year was like the Prove It Act. And for Republican offices, especially, one thing I learned is like you have to frame your ask in different ways depending on who you're asking and trying to like target what their concerns would be. So I think by meeting, I met with like a staffer of Ron Johnson, Senator Johnson, and I was a little nervous for that one, but he was like surprisingly receptive, I think, and it felt just like a normal conversation. Like you have to remember that they're just people, so it's not as scary as you think. And um, I think framing it in a way where you like talk about how this act will benefit like the senator or representative's constituency is really helpful. So yeah.
Great. And then Nina, you also mentioned that you felt more hopeful after doing that. I'm wondering, did it change how powerful you felt in your advocacy doing that? What has felt different in that since?
I definitely feel more empowered because I mean being able to talk to like legislators, like they're the people that are actually making the decisions and enacting policy, climate policy. So being able to communicate with them like directly is really powerful. And it's even though, you know, you can always call and text and send messages, it feels more powerful to just talk to them in person. So I'm really hoping to be able to do that again this year.
Great. Thanks, Nina. I appreciate it. Riley, let me move to you. Would you share with us some of your experiences in your climate advocacy?
Yeah. Most of my climate advocacy has really been with CCL over these past couple of months. As Lawrence, we've just started our chapter and building a community of like-minded people at Lawrence. I mean, Lawrence is a pretty environmentally conscious campus, and I think what really made us want to start a chapter was to fill a niche of climate advocacy towards policy. And I think really what I've gained from this experience was building a community. I think, like Nina, I had a lot of climate anxiety, like a feeling of hopelessness, because climate change can be an issue that feels really large and it feels like you can really, there's nothing to do about it. But I think over these past couple of months, realizing that there's a community that wants action towards a better climate, towards a better environment has been really helpful for me and my mental health and my climate advocacy and wanting to continue going forward, um, advocating for the right like climate policy. Um, yeah, that's about it.
Riley, what part of what you've been doing so far do you like the most? What's the most enjoyable?
For me, I'm kind of like a secretary, social media manager, but I think planning the events, especially the ones that are upcoming. Upcoming, we have an Earth Week, and so we have a letter writing event with another like climate focused group on campus. And so we're gonna have like provide food and like a dinner and write letters, and that's something that I'm excited that's coming up, and just getting the word out really has been awesome.
And how has it been received at Lawrence? How have your fellow students responded? How has the staff responded?
I think it's been really well. There's we have an advisor who is also part of CCL at some point. Um, and hearing about that, I was like, oh, this person knows about CCL. I didn't know about it before, but I was like, oh, that's cool. And also people in environmental policy or like more government professors or environmental science professors, they've received it really well, and spreading the word to their classes. Um, and also for being a small campus, it's been received really well. Usually we get around like 12, 13 people that come each meeting. And for like a campus that's like 1,500 students, it's pretty good. Um, so it's been received pretty well.
Great. Thank you, Riley. Madeline, let's move to you next. Would you share some of well, you've had a lot of experience in climate advocacy. Please share some of it with us.
Sure. So like I said, around the pandemic, I kind of was exploring, and since high school, I've joined a lot of different climate organizations. So I'm going to touch on some of the ones that are outside of CCL as well. Um, but yeah, I can start with CCL. I was not able to make it to the conference in DC last year, unfortunately, but I did attend the Great Lakes Conference, and that was a really cool experience to kind of talk with a lot of different people that I wouldn't usually interact with, I guess. And yeah, hear their perspectives on climate change. So I would say that was a good opportunity to also kind of network. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I've done with CCL. Um, but yeah, so beyond CCL, I'm one of the presidents of my high school's green team. And so we do a lot of different projects. Some of them are more like political activism and canvassing. And then some of them are more like hands-on tactile project focused. So we did a composting initiative within our school for like school lunches to make sure people aren't throwing leftover food scraps into the trash, that they um, go towards a composting within the city. And then we've also done things like electronic waste drives, where we collect waste from people around the city. They drop it off with us, and then we ship it off to Goodwill, who sorts it out between like things that can be salvaged and given to someone to use a second time, or if things aren't salvageable like that, then they take them apart and the parts go into the recycling rather than to the landfills. Um, I already talked a little bit about the youth environmental press team that I'm a part of, but I'd say that's a big way that I'm able to use my voice. So it's an online publication that anyone can access on the internet, which is really cool to be able to use my voice like that. And then we also do have a print edition for like best of the year that comes out, I think, annually. I've also been a part of the Dane County Youth Environmental Committee, which Nina talked a little bit about it, but primarily I've been involved with them with organizing the Dane County Youth Environmental Conference, which happens annually in November usually. And so that it's a pretty big deal. We draw about 200 high school students. Some of them are college students also from around the county. and we all come together, and there's like a lot of tabling and just interaction with a lot of different groups and projects and ideas. And so I've also actually, this past year, I tabled with CCL for that conference, in addition to being a moderator there.
Great. Thanks, Madeline.
Yeah.
All right, Emily, let's move to you. Please share some about your climate advocacy, and you might have answers to add as well to the questions that I asked Riley, so please feel free.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned this a little bit in my answer to the last question, but I think that my climate advocacy kind of got started with the science side of things and research. After all of the wildfires in northern Minnesota, it was my junior year of high school, and I decided to turn, my worries about climate change and my passion for the sciences into a science fair project about climate change in northeastern Minnesota and how weather patterns were affecting wildfire occurrence. And the next year, I did another science fair project on something totally different. It was about recycling plastics to use as filtration devices for different organic pollutants. And I was really, and still am, passionate about using, concepts in chemistry and in geoscience to solve existing problems. And I saw climate change as one of those huge problems. Last summer, I had a research position near Duluth, and I was looking at different trace contaminants in Lake Superior sediments. And I think last summer, especially, was kind of more of a realization that I didn't just want to do the science. I couldn't just stay in the realm of research without, using my voice to speak up about how a lot of these issues were impacting our communities and our homes. And so actually that was at the end of last summer when I learned about CCL. So immediately I was like, absolutely, I want to do this. This sounds exactly like what I want to do. And I was actually introduced to CCL through a friend from Duluth. So I started in that chapter, and then right away pretty much went back to school at Lawrence. So was kind of initiated into the Wisconsin realm of CCL pretty soon after. And I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to attend the fall conference. I found out about it just in time. And Riley and I and two other students from Lawrence who are also really excited about CCL and activism, we all drove down to Illinois, and we attended this conference together, and we learned all about CCL and met so many people. And we were so excited about it. I remember the first night after we had attended a bunch of the panel sessions during the day, we all went back to our hotel room and just pulled out our laptops and sat on the bed, and we're just like planning. We were like, okay, we're going to start a campus chapter. Like, how are we going to do this? What do we need to do? Who do we need to talk to? And we were all so excited about it. And I just found that passion right away in CCL, even though I hadn't even done any type of volunteering as a climate advocate yet. I had just met the people who were doing it. And so that's really where the excitement started, even though I'd come from more of a, chemistry research background and that kind of rigorous field. And I've been so excited since then to have been able to lobby in Tina Smith's office in Minnesota in December when I was back home over break. And that was a really incredible experience. It was just over Zoom. But it was amazing to be able to meet with, kind of like what Nina was saying, meet with the staff of the representative themselves, and really make that connection and learn that, yeah, these are also people, and we're all in this together, and we can all work toward this together. And that was such an impactful experience for me. I'm so excited for the opportunity to be able to do that again and even more in DC this summer. And like Riley was saying, since then we're doing the work to start a campus chapter at Lawrence University we're really excited about. We've had, just an outpouring of support from the students. There's a lot of environmentally minded organizations at Lawrence, but a lot of them are, we have a garden club, and we have sustainability committee, and a lot of those deal with localized problems at Lawrence and are really important. And I'm a part of both of those actually as well. But there wasn't an organization specifically for climate advocacy and educating about policy. And I think that a lot of students were really frustrated by the lack of their ability to have a voice in that and then learn about that, have resources for that. And CCL has it all. I mean, we saw that when we went to the fall conference and we first logged into CCL community and saw all the tabs at the top with everything, and we were like, oh my God, this just blew all of our minds. And so since then, we've just been really excited to share that with the campus community. And yeah, it's been received well by professors and students. We're really excited about all the work to come.
Okay. And how difficult was it, or how many hoops did you have to jump through to get the student organization started?
I think that, I mean, general jumping through hoops of starting an organization were definitely something that existed. Just like delays in, getting named an organization and figuring out could we get funding as a student organization for events, finding an advisor. It took a lot of communication with a lot of different people. But I think since we were all really excited about it, and there were a solid 4 of us, and now there's many more willing to do that work, it was really possible.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have anything that they want to add to this answer that you might have thought of when someone else was speaking before we move on? If not, that's fine. I just thought I'd give you an opportunity. Great, okay. Emmeline, it's time for you to make a pitch. Please do.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I just wanted to thank you all for being here again. I want to thank Jill and Holly for setting this all up, and everyone else who worked on this, and Jay for moderating, and Pat for being our IT person. It's been really incredible to just get this started in like so little time. And to have this outpouring of support is really inspiring for me and Riley and all of us. So yeah, we're students at Lawrence University, and we're really excited about the possibility of attending the DC conference this summer. But as students, none of us can entirely afford the trip on our own. And we're working really hard to fundraise right now for all of the interested students. We're actually hoping to set up a bake sale with hopefully one of our local churches, maybe something like that. But we're right now a little bit worried about being able to support everyone as much as possible who is interested. And there's a ton of interest because the Lawrence University campus is super passionate about this, and CCL providing this opportunity has a lot of people really excited. And I also think that, the history of the climate movement has really shown that intergenerational voices have the greatest impact. Like I think about, powerful voices in science from the 1970s who have been talking about climate change for decades. And I think about, like Nina mentioned, Greta Thunberg, and all of the climate marches that we started seeing, especially in high school and middle school, and, our generation really waking up to what climate change means to us. And I think that we've all begun to recognize that this work requires all of us, all generations, and CCL really embodies that. So we're all really excited about doing this work, and we're doing that by starting Wisconsin's first campus chapter at Lawrence University. And we really want to bring that to the national scale by making it possible for all these students like me and Riley to attend the DC conference. And we've been working with our campus chapter to meet with students from Bowdoin who are supporting the CFD movement. We're working with our university administration to develop a 5, 10, and 20-year plan for university sustainability. We're, like Riley mentioned, hosting an event this term to just churn out as many letters as possible to our representatives, especially about tax credits in the IRA, and we're learning more about that. So we're really excited about all this work being done. But I think there's this momentum building for we want to be able to attend a national conference and really like be there physically in a tangible conversation with our representatives. So that would be really huge for all of us, and I think incredibly inspiring from what Nina has told us about being a younger person attending the national conference. So yeah, thank you all again so much for being here and just showing your support. It really means a lot to us, and we would appreciate any and all donations to help fund our students to attend the DC conference. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the enthusiastic pitch, Emmeline. So if anyone would like to donate, you can do that on CCL Wisconsin's state site. That is cclwi.org/donate. Again, cclwi.org/donate. And considering the enthusiasm that you all bring and the fact that, as you've already mentioned, and what I've learned in my few years in CCL is that your voices are more interesting to listen to by our representatives. So it is worth all of our while for us to invest in you being able to go do that work. So I appreciate your willingness and your enthusiasm that you bring to it. So thanks very much for that. Okay, let's move on then. One of you has attended the conference and 3 of you, I believe, hope to. Please share a little bit about what it would mean to you to be able to attend the conference and meet with your representatives, or if you have, what it did mean. So Riley, I'm going to start with you on this one. What would it mean to you to be able to do that?
I think the main thing for me is to be able to attend a conference. It would just give me a lot more experience in policy work and being at the Capitol or in Washington, D.C., being surrounded by like-minded people who are advocating for the same thing, would be really cool. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say except that like it would just be an awesome experience to attend and be a voice and use my voice towards action, towards a better climate.
Great. Thanks, Riley. How about you, Madeline? What would it mean for you to be able to be supported in this way and go do that work?
Yeah, I think a big point is kind of just what you were already saying, Jay, that the voices of youth hold a lot of power. And I would like to be able to, I think it's a really powerful thing to be able to say that, like, you changed your congressman's mind or something like that. So, I mean, I've written letters to my representatives in Congress, but I think there's something to say for being in the physical room with other people, and having those actual conversations that are like a back and forth, and a true interaction as opposed to just the one-sided kind of less concrete experience of just writing a letter and sending it in, um, and then hoping that someone sees it at some point. I think there's a big difference there, and I think it would be really powerful and a really an experience that would allow me to grow a lot to be able to have those actual conversations in person.
Great. Thank you, Madeline. How about you, Emmeline?
Yeah, I absolutely agree that it would help me grow as a climate advocate. I'm pretty new to this because, as I talked about, I just found out about CCL pretty much last fall. And so far, all of the work that I've done has inspired me so much and helps me be more confident in myself as an advocate. Also, I think that it's true that, we can so easily feel very removed from national level politics because I think we can read the news and through social media we find out about a lot of things that might be seem frustrating or something that we want to have a say in or do something about. But because we're here in Appleton, Wisconsin, it feels like, how can I make a difference? I can send a letter, I can call, but sometimes it doesn't have that personal connection that just like overcomes that barrier. And so it can pretty easily lead to feelings of hopelessness when it comes to being an activist. So I think that attending a conference like this and forming that connection with my actual representatives on Capitol Hill would just be an incredible, inspiring experience that would probably, change my outlook as a climate advocate for years. And I would hope that I could spread that, same experience throughout my community at Lawrence.
Great. Thanks, Emmeline. Nina, you've already mentioned some, but do you have anything else that you'd like to add about what it meant to you to be able to go and what it might mean to you to be able to go again?
Yeah, I kind of already talked about the conference a lot, but I think it would definitely mean a lot to me, especially like in this Congress during a time where, for me at least, it feels like there is kind of a disconnect between us and legislators. So, yeah, like you said, Jay, like youth have a really powerful voice in climate conversations. So, I hope that lobbying would make a big difference for legislators. And last year, the conference was really educational for me. Um, I learned a lot about like policy, especially because you're spending like several days just learning about climate policy in a room with like hundreds of other CCL members. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about that and hearing about how we'll approach our asks this year because that's always changing. And it would also mean that I can reconnect with all the CCL members that I met last year and also meet new CCL members. It was really cool to like hear about what other chapters are doing around the country. Um, and it really inspired me. And yeah, just hearing about like listening to the really talented speakers and talking to people um, about what they were doing in their communities. Um, and I'm also looking forward to hopefully meeting with um, Representative Pocan again, hopefully, or his staffer. I met with him last summer in DC, and then I did like a virtual for the fall conference, like, or no, the fall virtual lobby day, I
Mhm.
believe, in December. I could be wrong, but I met with him virtually. And so since I've like met with him twice, um, I think it would be cool to like kind of build more trust with him and like kind of build like a relationship, I guess, and talk to him again. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. So once again, I believe the link has been posted in the chat to donate. That's cclwi.org/donate. So we have some Q&A. So let me just go through the questions. And for this, I'm just going to ask you to raise your hand if you'd like to respond to it instead of me calling on you. So the first question is, what do you think is needed to energize more young people to join in climate advocacy? And I just want to say before you start answering those questions that you four are not responsible for speaking for your generation. I just want to make that clear. So this is just asking what your opinion is or what your life experience is. So again, what do you think is needed to energize more young people to join in climate advocacy? Who would like to take that? Emmeline.
Yeah, I think that from what I've seen, the most important step is just increasing accessibility. So what I've seen on the Lawrence campus at, an undergrad level is that we're all incredibly busy. And so catering around students' schedules has been really, really important. And I know that can't speak for like all of my generation, but those that are, in a college setting, and are passionate about climate change have a lot going on and a lot to worry about, like on top of thinking about climate advocacy. And of course, that's incredibly important to all of us that are here. But making it work with, having meetings every other week on Sunday evenings, having snacks there, being mindful of schedules and time commitments and how many events we have per term, things like that, just to decrease burnout as much as possible, because I think that our generation especially is pretty prone to climate anxiety and burnout because we're constantly bombarded with news and social media about climate. I mean, we all are, but I think that our generation has experienced this for most of our lives. And so just providing the space to talk about things like that and talk about, yeah, this is really, really scary and frustrating. And here's what we can do about it together. And just creating that sense of community in an accessible way has been really important for us.
Great, thanks, Emmeline. Would anyone like to add anything? Yeah, Madeline.
Yeah, I want to echo a lot of the things Emmeline said. I think you made some really great points. I would also add that I think one of the most important things is like starting that conversation with youth, and just like opening discussion, I guess. Because I think a lot of the time young people, we tend to have like this reputation for not really caring about issues and things like that. And I would say if it seems like that, it's probably because we're overwhelmed and we don't know where to start. Because if you're feeling all of that anxiety and you don't see any inroads to actually doing anything about it, I think it makes sense that people would just tune out the issue altogether. So I would say one of the most important things for energizing us is just like beginning that initial engagement and not assuming that we're uninterested or that we don't care.
Got it. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next question. Do your peers talk about climate change? I think we know the answer to that one. And what do they say? So I think the older folks are used to, what we say in our circles, but what does it sound like in your circles? Who'd like to take that one? Nina.
This is kind of like a niche thing that I've been hearing recently, but with like ChatGPT and these like large language models, I've been hearing a lot about like AI water usage, and it's something that like my friends have been talking about and like posting on social media. So that's kind of like a random thing, but that's just something that I've been hearing a lot of my peers talk about recently. And I think AI is also a very relevant issue today. So yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Good point. Anyone else want to share what you hear? Emily.
Yeah, that kind of reminded me. I think issues like very not independent, but more specific issues like AI water usage, or different fast fashion companies. That's what youth are talking about more. And I think that's propagated by social media because it's easier for one thing to kind of spread like a wildfire, one thing to blow up. So often our generation is discussing those like one-time news flash events. Whereas I think for what I've heard from older generations is talking more about like the systems in place and policies in place that need to be discussed. And I think that can be said about like the news sources and social media that different generations are using too. So that makes sense. But I think, yeah, I mean, absolutely, our generation is talking about climate change, but in the different way being, we're talking more about like those specific problems instead of overarching problems. And I think that's kind of actually what we're hoping to bridge with bringing CCL to Lawrence is, educating on those policies that can make a difference and the type of advocacy that can make a difference in all of those problems by looking at, okay, what are the systems in place that are, causing these in the first place.
Great. Thank you. Madeline.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add that I think a lot of it is um, talking about the things that feel most relevant to you. So I think youth focus a lot on like the day-to-day lifestyle choices that we can make. So things like Emmeline, you mentioned fast fashion. I think that's definitely a big one, and AI. And then I was at a gathering with a group of older folks for climate change earlier today, actually, and it was interesting to hear that a lot of their concerns were it's just things that I don't think about. So they were really concerned about like housing. Uh, we can make our homes more sustainable or like the efficiency of new buildings. And so obviously youth aren't, or like high school aged youth are not homeowners. So that's not something that's really a priority for me or that I would have thought of. So I think it's really just the things that are most relevant to your day-to-day life is the difference.
Great. Thank you. Anything you'd like to add, Riley, or should I go on?
I don't think I have anything else to add. They said
Great.
it really well.
Great. Just wanted to check. Okay. Next question. Are there other students from Lawrence who want to go to DC for the conference and lobbying that you're aware of? Riley, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think that's like one of the main driving factors to CCL when, I mean, we've spoke in a couple of classrooms of mainly like intro classes of intro like environmental science or chemistry classes or policy classes or whatever. And I think that's one of the main driving factors is to be able to have an impact at a national level, to go to DC and just gain that experience of lobbying. And I think I've we have like a couple people who are really sure that they want to go. But also everyone's really busy. So
Understood.
it's hard. It's hard to really balance your life and trying to do something, but it's something that I think a lot of students want to have that type of experience.
Great, thank you. Anything to add, Emmeline?
Yeah, I think Riley covered it pretty well. When we first started the campus chapter, we did those initial presentations, just to a variety of people across campus. And like Riley said, one of the main interests was, oh, I could go to Washington D.C. and talk to my representatives. Like that exists, and a lot of people were really excited about that. And we did, I think our first meeting we did like, okay, quick show of hands who's has interest in attending this conference, and like all but two people who knew they couldn't raise their hands. Like everyone was super excited about it. And right now, I think what Riley was trying to say was more that everyone's trying to figure out their summer plans right now. So everything is kind of up in the air. So many people want to go, and we're all kind of figuring out now, like, okay, how will this internship, affect my ability to go to the conference, that kind of thing. But there's absolutely a huge interest at Lawrence for attending this conference. It's pretty incredible.
Great, thank you. And then someone else was wondering, do you know what the budget is or how much money you need?
I don't think we have specific numbers right now. What we need help funding for the most is transportation costs and housing costs. And right now we're trying to figure out the logistics of and what would be cheaper of, okay, flying versus driving. Do we have cars that can take the people that we need? Can we take, a train or a bus or something else we can figure out? And how would that work? And where could we find the cheapest housing that's close enough to the event? And where can we find meals once we're there? So those are our main priorities in covering the costs of right now. So I don't know specifics on how much that would cost budget wise. But I know that all of these fundraising events are still in the works, and we're just really trying to raise as much as possible so that as many people can attend as possible, regardless of, financial need.
Great, thank you. And someone mentioned in the Q&A grant opportunities. Is there any thought of looking into grants like with the Gates Foundation or anything else?
We haven't looked into any grant opportunities. There's one possibility. We have an environmental project fund at our school, but that's generally focused on student projects at the school. For example, someone just used it to order seeds to plant native plants around campus. So it's a little bit, it's like that could happen, but we're not sure. So other opportunities like grants like this bake sale we might do are still kind of in the works, and that was a big driving factor in why Jill and I talked about doing a fundraising call like this and asking our community for some help.
Great, thanks. Nina.
Yeah, we definitely thought about grants earlier this year as well. A lot of them were kind of tricky to apply to just because like sometimes their rules didn't quite match with our trip and like just different deadlines and things. But we did apply to a Bloomberg grant that was given to the city of Madison. I think it's called the Youth Climate Action Fund grant. We're still waiting to hear back about it, but yeah, we did apply to that one. I think it's just different for like our chapter because there's like the new requirement that youth have to be with a parent, like if you're a minor. So that kind of changes the transportation and housing costs. Um, but yeah, I think we're just hoping to hear back from that grant. But yeah.
Great, thank you. Last question in the Q&A, and I think, Emily, you might have answered this already, but you can repeat yourself. Who introduced you to CCL? So, Emily, let's start with you.
Great question. Actually, I don't know if any of you happen to know Diane Desitel, who is a member of the Duluth surrounding area chapter. Actually, I grew up going to Pilgrim Congregational Church in Duluth with Diane. And her and my mom happened to be friends, and she actually did like a second hour after a service one day about CCL. And after her presentation, I asked her about it and how I could get involved. And she was like, come to our next meeting. And that's where it all started. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Nina, who introduced you?
Wait, I have to think about this. I think I heard about it through my friend who invited me to a stroll and scoop. We just I think this was last like spring, but it was just an event to like walk by the lake and eat ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
So I was interested um and it sounded really interesting and got me excited. So that was kind of how I joined CCL.
Great. How about you, Madeline?
Yeah, so I feel like the way that I learned about CCL was very indicative of like the organization itself. Like there's a big focus on one-on-one conversations and community. Holly Jorgensen, who's on this call right now, posted in our like neighborhood community group about the opportunity to do an art party, which was where there was like pizza served and everyone just sat and connected with other people who are passionate about youth or about climate change. And we made a little like book of art and short little pieces of text about why climate change is important to us, why it's important to us to save this world. And we compiled that all into a book for Representative Pocan. Um, and so she posted about that opportunity on our little like neighborhood group, and my parents saw it, and then we connected over email, and that's how I got involved.
Great, thank you. And Riley?
Yeah, I learned about CCL through Emmeline. It just happened over like a lunch break. Um, we were like literally sitting at this picnic table outside, eating lunch, and it was with one of the other students that went to the Great Lakes Conference. And she was just like, hey, there's this Great Lakes Conference that's coming up. It's about climate policy. You guys are environmental science majors, so would you like to go? And I was like, oh yeah. And I think it was like either that weekend or like the weekend after we drove down to Illinois and we went, and it just sparked everything from there. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you all very much for all of your responses and input and enthusiasm. It's been a really great hour. I'm going to bring Jill back to close us out.
I have some websites on here that might be of interest, especially the one at the bottom. Any questions about our new scholarship fund or how to apply or anything about CCL in Wisconsin, feel free to use this email address, cclwisco@gmail.com. And again, I just wanted to say thank you so much to our panelists. It has been so inspiring to hear you talk about these things, and this gives me a lot of hope for our future, and we see how smart our young people are. Thank you so much. And to everyone who came tonight, everyone who helped plan the event, and anyone who gave any donations. We know that some people wouldn't ever go to Washington to lobby because, well, they don't have the time or the inclination, but we would ask those folks if they were interested and able to consider making it possible for others who do want to go and help raise up their voices. So thank you all so much for joining us.